eye doctor appointment where they dilated my pupils, so as it gets brighter, I may be putting them on. We'll now have the first public portion in which to speak on agenda items only. Please raise your hand and come to the microphone. Seeing no hands, we'll close the first public portion. Minutes.
Waive the reading and accept the minutes of August 12th, 2013.
Motion to accept the minutes.
So moved.
Second.
On the question, roll call, please.
Mr. Hutchison?
Abstain.
Mr. Schmidt?
Abstain.
Mr. Seiler?
Yes.
Mrs. Strato?
Yes.
Mrs. Winters?
Yes.
Mr. Mercado?
Yes.
Mr. Bianchini?
Abstain. Next is an ordinance of first reading. Ordinance O-13-15. Ordinance amending Chapter 65A of the Code of the Township of Gloucester entitled Parks, Rules, and Regulations of the Code of the Township of Gloucester. This ordinance is to address specific vehicle parking, which includes bikes, motorcycles, mopeds, mini bikes, etc., for footpaths and travel and trails established for pedestrian travel. The only one that, and I'll ask the solicitor to add to this, the only one that is allowed in the Hickstown Park on the trails are foot-powered bicycles. So, Dave, you want to add?
That's correct. There was a request, since there's seems to be a lot of intended or availability of use for foot-driven pedal bikes on designated paths and trails throughout the Hickstown Park, because it's more suited for that than the other parks. So there was a request to amend the ordinance to allow foot-driven pedal bikes in designated paths and trails at the Hickstown Park only.
Thank you. Motion to adopt.
Second.
On the question, roll call, please.
Mr. Hutchison?
Yes.
Mr. Schmidt?
Yes.
Mr. Seiler?
Yes.
Mrs. Strato?
Yes.
Mrs. Winters?
Yes.
Mr. Mercado?
Yes.
Mr. Bianchini?
Yes. Resolutions of consent agenda. Any council person wishing to remove any of these resolutions, please let me know now. Do I have a motion to accept the consent agenda?
So moved. Second.
On the question, roll call, please.
Mr. Hutchison?
Yes.
Mr. Schmidt?
Yes.
Mr. Seiler?
Yes.
Mrs. Strato?
Yes.
Mrs. Winters?
Yes.
Mr. Mercado?
Yes.
Mr. Bianchini?
Yes.
234, resolution of the Township Council, the Township of Gloucester, County of Camden, State of New Jersey, declaring that an emergency exists, requiring the immediate repairs to Thorny Lane Erosion Project pursuant to NJSA 40A11-6.
As the title states, there was an emergency repair needed for the Thorny Lane erosion, and this, I believe, was at the head wall. John, any?
In a brief description of the problem, we were trying to resolve an erosion problem there. There was an existing head wall. The area was heavily vegetated when we did the inspections and surveys even in the winter. First, when we got out there, we found that the head wall had collapsed on us. We had to do something to repair that, which wasn't part of the bid package. It was attacked when we were out there doing the survey's original design. Then we got hit with that gully wash on July 28th, after we'd already stripped the material out. It not only washed out the fill that was put in, which the contractor had to cover at his cost, but it washed out areas beyond the scope of the work. It undercut the existing drain pipe that came from the street there that was remain in place in two sections backfill out. So we had to do a lot of extensive, had a contractor do a lot of extensive work on an emergency basis. So that's the reason for the change order.
Thank you, John. Motion to adopt the resolution, excuse me.
So moved. Second.
On the question, roll call, please.
Mr. Hutchison?
Yes.
Mr. Schmidt?
Yes.
Mr. Seiler?
Yes.
Mrs. Strato?
Yes.
Mrs. Winters?
Yes.
Mr. Mercado?
Yes.
Mr. Bianchini?
Yes.
235, resolution of Township Council, the Township of Gloucester, Camden County, New Jersey, authorizing the designation of the current Gloucester Township bike path from Lakeland Road to Brown Road to be known as Gloucester Township Health and Fitness Trail.
As the title states, this...
Mr. President, on that one, I'd like to mention an amendment possibly on, it should read Main Street to Brown Avenue.
That's Main Street in Grenlock, the road down, the bicycle path starts at Main Street in Grenlock south of Lakeland Avenue.
So it should be Lakeland Road or Main Street?
It's a path from, it should be from, I guess, Main Street, the Grenlock area. You have more than one Main Street in town. So Main Street in the Grenlock area to Brown Road.
And it's Brown Avenue.
Brown Avenue, I'm sorry.
So we'll make those two changes.
Motion to amend. Second.
On the question, roll call?
Mr. Hutchison?
Yes.
Mr. Schmidt?
Yes.
Mr. Seiler?
Yes.
Mrs. Trotter?
Yes.
Mrs. Winters? Mr. Mercado?
Yes, to
Mr. Bianchini?
Yes. Now, motion to approve the amended resolution.
I'll make that motion, Mr. President.
Second. On the question, roll call, please.
Mr. Hutchison?
Yes.
Mr. Schmidt?
Yes.
Mr. Seiler?
Yes.
Mrs. Trotter?
Yes.
Mrs. Winters?
Yes.
Mr. Mercado?
Yes.
Mr. Bianchini?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Mrs. Stroman. Mayor's report, the mayor's not here, so we'll move past that. I did not get any GTE Gov access questions. So we'll open up to the second public portion. Anyone wish to speak on any subject, please raise your hand, come to the mic. Yes, sir. Pete?
Dean Highball, Gordon Clark Court. I have a couple questions. One, I read in the Courier Post last week, Camden City had just qualified its independent auditor, Bowman, which is the independent auditor, Gloucester Township uses, because they found that they're making an attack with violating
Pete,
Camden City.
the township does not use Bowman. The MUA uses Bowman, and I'm not sure of anyone else, but the township uses Inverso and Stewart.
I see. So that says, pay to put. So this is our Gloucester Township paid for any ordinance that's passed by the GTMUA.
Township passed this ordinance. Not sure how the exact reading, to be honest with you, even though we can't do a lot of drafting of that. I have to look through that, but our ordinance controls how the township functions. The pay-to-play legislation that's out there should control the Gloucester Township MUA, just as it would control the Township of Gloucester. As you know, the township does a fair and open process, so the pay-to-play legislation in New Jersey always exempted a fair and open process. So if all your professional appointments, insurance consultants or auditors and attorneys and engineers, professionals, are all through an open, fair and open process, that's exempt from the pay-to-play legislation. The township ordinance has the same exemption. I don't know about this other municipality.
Yes, Camden City is different. So the fact that Bowman contributed to a PAC wouldn't have to be disclosed
Well,
for Township because of the fair and open.
all the township professionals, once the award is made, they're required to disclose, as they would anyway through the Contribution Act. But they're required to give a list when their contract is signed of all contributions that they made.
Where would one find that list? Where's that recorded?
It's all gathered through my office. I'm not sure if it's filed in the clerk's office, but all the contracts that come in by professionals have to have a contribution list attached to them. So I have them. I don't know if they've been sent down to me.
So if he wants to see that, he can open that.
You can open it.
Yeah, you can open that, Pete.
A couple more questions regarding my sort of ongoing effort to look for every nickel and dime and dollar the township can save. One was, again, related to the GTMUA. I saw at the last public meeting, we passed a resolution to open a bidding process to receive employee training on their accounting software system. And they're going to bring in a professional trainer for that, for everything, sure. And that's a couple $100 an hour, whatever that's going to be. Members of the Gloucester Township Finance Department, Accounting Department, already utilizing that system. So there a way we can, instead of hiring a professional, outside professional, do in-house training?
Well, Pete, I can't comment on if our people are trained to be able to give training to the MUA, and I guess Tom can answer that. But I can tell you with the MUA, the usage of the software wasn't going as they thought it should have been going. So the board made a decision that, you spend a good amount of money on software, as we all know, and that's financial software, and so they felt it was necessary to get that training in so that everything is being utilized appropriately. So that was their thought behind that.
So we wouldn't look into any effort to.
Well, and again, Pete, I don't know, I mean, just my experience in installing software in healthcare, we don't bring another hospital that uses the same software into our hospital to help train us. We use the company, and if there's additional needs, you get those additional needs through a professional vendor. So, again, I don't know the expertise of our folks, but I don't believe they're experts in training for that software. But again, Tom, if you want to comment.
I don't know if they have specific applications that are geared towards utility fund accounting, so I really can't address that. I don't know if this is part of an agreement they have between themselves and Edmunds Associates. So I really am not in a position to speak of it. I'm sure that the MUA is doing what they feel they should do in their best interest.
What about more generally with the GTMUA? They're a component of Gloucester Township government. Everyone sitting in this room would consider them a component of Gloucester Township government. We've given some spin
Well,
or not. But
I just want to make sure there's not a confusion. The council appoints the GTMUA commissioners, but under the statute, they operate independently. They set their own rates, they have their own board that governs them. We can't tell them what to do. I just want to make sure what you said, they are a component. They are appointed by, but I don't know which one by component.
I think I understand. We as a township are always looking for shared service, cost savings,
And we do that with the MUA.
on pricing agreements and things like that. What about some?
We do that
administrative
with the recycling. They do all our recycling, and we've saved hundreds of thousands of dollars by them doing that. And that continues to be a profitable thing. And every year or two, Tom goes out to make sure that it's still a profitable venture between us two, and it still is, and still a very, very smart thing for us to continue. So we do have that relationship with them.
Okay, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
What I'm talking about more is sort of a sharing the administrative functions, back office type functions like accounting, payroll, accounts payable, purchasing, more or less combining those where we can, those back office type functions.
Well, again, this is an authority. It's a separate unit. They're accounted for separate. They have separate audits. What Pete's talking about would be a utility, and that would be completely the opposite of an authority. So, unless we had a utility here in Gloucester Township and we're conducting utility fund accounting, it's not applicable.
Again, Pete, just so you're aware, they do purchase agreements with the county and others for certain things, just like we do here. So they have those agreements in place for that. They have an outside agency that does their payroll at this point. So we do it in-house. So they have a little different philosophy of how they handle that. Administratively, their executive director has to be licensed according to state statute. I'm assuming state statute, correct? So they have to have certain things in place there that we don't necessarily have here. So I see where you're going, and I appreciate your thoughts on that. But I can tell you that board looks for every penny and every dime. They've gone out with different vendors to get reduction in health insurances and stuff like that. They're very, very active on that board.
Yeah, and I appreciate that too. I guess I'm asking if they, instead of looking just at themselves for every place they can save money, we look at big,
Yeah, no.
combining with the township.
I don't disagree with you. And they do that, and like I said, we have a couple things we work with them, and the biggest thing is that they use we use them for recycling. We also utilize them for, or they utilize us in some cases for repairing of their vehicles. They don't send them out. We take care of them over at the Public Works, so we have that also in which they work with us on.
Just one more comment.
Sure.
One more comment on this, the same thing.
Sure.
In my experience in the private sector, what technology and software enables is people who sit 5 miles away or 1,000 miles away can, using technology, combine functions and manage functions remotely using software and technology. So both, here we have this great situation, both entities are using the same accounting software. It just seems that somewhere along the line, this should have been a natural thought, a natural way to go to possibly combine and utilize technology to consolidate services, and share services, and administratively, only one office would perform these functions rather than separate offices.
And I understand your thought process on that. However, you know, there are certain requirements, certain elements of it that is very different than what we do here. So, although believe me, if there's a way for either of us to reduce our costs by utilizing a service that we have or they have, we will do it.
One more comment then. I mean, you're right, the different entities do different things, you just, because it's different ways, but in the world of finance, accounts payable is accounts payable, payroll is payroll. You can totally separate lines of business and still process payroll from other, like other facilities and other accounting.
Yeah, now payroll, take that for instance, we have different unions here than they have there. So there's different agreements, there's different ways to do your payroll and giving people time off, etc. So that's a difference. So, but you know, Pete, again, I assure you, if there's something that we can share, I think this administration and council has looked for all kinds of shared service agreements in every aspect that we can do. We've done it with the schools, we've done it with other townships, we've gone in and saved money on trash.
Well, we also share services with workman's comp insurance.
With the
Self-funded
with
from
MUA.
the MUA.
Yeah. That's true. So there's a lot of things that I think, and that doesn't mean we have everything under you know, that we need to look at, but we continue to look at everything.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Pete. Ray?
What did you repeat everything there?
That's not charged.
Here it is.
Good evening, Council. Ray Pelder, Ariel.
Good evening, Ray.
I noticed that all the schools are underway of getting the solar panels installed. My question is, who selected the specific site where the panels would go up? Was that engineering or was that solar?
I imagine that's part of engineering that would do that.
Yeah.
Okay. And throughout the town, is there more than just one contractor doing all the work, or we have that assigned to one contractor?
Yeah, I believe it's one.
Angelini's doing all of that. Okay. And from what I'm seeing, the project basically is at a cost of $20 million, and it will save us $4 million over 15 years.
I believe that's correct.
Okay. Does
I
that
don't know
sound?
the exact numbers, Ray, but
That's in and about the ballpark. Does that sound like a wise choice for us to make?
Again, it's not money that we're putting forth. It's what's that? Yeah, but, well, it's grant money, but it's under a purchase power agreement. So they're laying out the money for that, and then we're reaping the benefits from the savings.
Yeah,
And
so we're not paying for all that 20 million,
Right.
we're reaping the benefits of it.
they're paying for that.
They being,
I think it's Marina Energy,
Contract.
is that correct?
and that is all coming,
Money from a grant?
You know, you might have to.
Power purchase agreement.
I believe it's because of the tax credits, Ray. I don't know the intricacies of it, but that's the plus to them wanting to do this project. It's the tax credits and the SRECs. Am I correct, Mr. Quammen?
That's correct. Township's not putting out that cost that you might see with the contractors. It says it costs a $20 million project. Township and school boards are not putting out $20 million. The company, Marina, whatever their name is, they're the company under the power purchase agreement that benefits by the SRACs and all everything else that their program and cost credits they receive. Oh, yeah. That was how the project was put together as a power purchase agreement.
okay, I mean, basically, I'm trying to get the source of the funding of this. You're stating Marina, but is it indeed grant money, the inevitable source of that?
There's state money, but it's the power purchase agreement, I really couldn't begin to explain how their funding is coming. Just
I mean, in essence, the grant money is from a government source, which is taxpayer money. But either way, taxpayer money is funding the program, just not specifically here in Gloucester Township. Is that correct?
Why don't we give the agreement to Mr. Fowler, who already created? We're saving $4 million, right?
Spending 20 to save 4? Is that correct?
We're not spending
Who
the
do you think
20.
is spending 20?
Well, it's got to come from a source, correct?
Are you suggesting that we're spending 20 million?
I'm suggesting that the project costs 20 million. It has to,
We're not spending 20 million, we're saving 4 million now.
over 15 years.
Yeah.
But the project costs 20 million, that's correct.
That's the investment of the power purchase, the power agreement vendor.
Okay.
They're putting that.
And I don't have the exact configuration. What's lacking here is the tax credits, because that's really why this whole deal makes sense. They're getting tax credits, and that's
So, Tom,
dollars to them.
I think Mr. Hutchinson's suggestion is good. Maybe you can get that agreement and share it with him and answer any questions he may have.
Right. If you want to send me an email with specific questions, I'll get back to you with it.
All right, maybe I'll stop by and see.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Anyone else? Yes. Tanya? Yes.
Thanks for coming back. Kind of missed you. Tanya Brown, Sicklerville, New Jersey, terrestrial. Councilman Hutchinson, President Bianchini, Councilman Schmidt. You guys weren't here when I was here the last meeting, and I just had a question about whether any of you guys had any financial interest or dealings or benefits from the premium outlet, the developers or any investors in that project. So I just want to get a yes or no.
I can tell you for me, no.
No.
No?
Thank you.
Thank you. That's a no or yes? You know, it's kind of hard to come up here to talk to you guys. Not you, Glenn. We're voters. We elect you in office, and this is how you treat us. This is how you treat us. You're out here, you're campaigning, and you get up there and you forget where you came from. It's a sad day when you do that.
You've asked that question a bunch of times.
No, I haven't.
Hey,
No, I haven't.
and I believe we all file financial disclosure forms when we sit up here.
Yep.
So this is not an opportunity for you to interrogate me. If you want the answer, open my financial disclosure form.
I'm not going to, I will do that if I have to. I just
Well,
asked you a question.
But that's fine.
As a
If you want-
constituent, I asked you a
If you want an
question.
answer, open my form.
I'll open your form then. But, again,
Okay.
people vote for you. but you forget where you came from.
Okay,
And that's sad, that's really sad. Okay, and you really, really should be, you know, more aware of the fact that when you come outside this door and you walk in the neighborhoods, you talk to people, you talk to us. But when you get up there, you don't talk to us. You condescend to us.
No, I don't feel like being lectured.
I'm not
By
lecturing you. I'm not lecturing you. I didn't come here to lecture you. I came to ask you a question.
You stand up there at that
You are so
microphone
argumentative
and
for
you
no apparent
lecture
reason.
us
Anyway,
every time.
my next question.
So I have a form that you can over if you'd like to
You
open.
know what, never mind, small thing to a bigger person, okay? We'll leave it at that. My next question, Bach Engineers, they're working on a Academy Mall. And I just wanted to know if that company ever made any contributions to any of your members of council here.
I don't know, but there's a professional contract. Their contract requires the same disclosure that the ordinance mandates. Any contract awarded requires, once the contract is signed, for them to file a certification of campaign contributions. So Bach had to file it just like every other professional service contract.
Is there a thing that residents or anybody can check, search?
Campaign Contribution Act in New Jersey is online. Campaign organizations file all their receipts online. Anyone can have access.
All right, thank you. And that would include Remington? Remington and Vernon as well?
Remington and Vernon under a professional service contract. That's a fair and open process and was awarded in January. When they signed their contract, they file their disclosure form just as everyone else has.
I think I have a last question, but I'm not exactly sure. I might have to come back up. But it has to do with something I saw from Donald Norcross, and it had to do with employees in the state and that sort of thing. So let me go check, and I'll come back.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
Good evening. Robert Kolakowski, Lincoln Drive, Glen Oaks. At the last council meeting, which Councilman Mercado officiated at, I had asked if the tax assessor had come up with a preliminary ballpark estimate as to how much taxes premium outlets would generate once that was up and operational. I think you said that you would try to have it for the next council meeting. Was there any progress made on that?
It slipped my mind. Can I get it for you tomorrow?
He has been on vacation.
He's been on vacation. I was on vacation last week, but I'm
Until
on.
sick, so.
Okay. Secondly, when I think Main Stage took over Academy Hall, there was talk of possibly the vision for that becoming an arts district. And whether that's true or not, I was wondering, is there any master vision paper on what council and mayor would like that district to become? Is there anything in writing at this point?
Okay. Is our planner?
Presently, the area is in the Blackwood West redevelopment area, and there is a Blackwood West redevelopment plan, but the arts district has come on board subsequent to the plan being adopted in 2004. There would probably be amendments to that plan.
Do we know when that would be, or is there anything in the works
I
currently?
have discussed with the mayor to find out what the schedule is for that.
Okay. And finally, being
Can we get that information back to the gentleman?
Yeah.
Yeah. Do we have his number?
I didn't have it.
Just before you leave, get the clerk your number so
I
we
can
can.
give you my card. You can give me
Okay. And finally, being a resident of Glen Oaks, I live here in Glen Oaks, and I work in the township over on Cross Keys Road, and I travel back roads through it. And I noticed that most of the developments have signage identifying their development. I was wondering why Glen Oaks doesn't have any. We have like 3 major entrances, and was just wondering why we don't have one of the largest developments.
I imagine Glen Oaks is probably like 40 years.
It was built in the 60s.
Yeah.
At one time there was.
I think where those bricks were
Up
one time.
this way, yeah.
It was vandalized, I can remember, but that was years ago.
My development has signage, but everybody in the development pitched in, And we bought the sign, and we put it up.
Okay.
I don't know if other ones are doing that either.
A lot of the developments do it as they submit the plans, but as was discussed, it was developed a long time ago. But we recently amended the sign ordinance to allow developments to put up development entrance signs, at least 2 minimum. But it would be, as Mr. Hutchinson said, if the residents wanted to get together, then someone would have to choose on what property would be on. It wouldn't be on the right of way, they would be on someone's property.
Okay. So,
Most of these signs are on private property, and they have an easement or something of that sort.
okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Pete?
Pete Highball, Morningstar Court. I do have another topic I wanted to discuss, and it's one I've discussed before, and that's the open space related spending we incur here in the town, in the tax, the separate tax that we incur here in the township. My first question is, I see that open space commission or committee is scheduled to meet the fourth Wednesday of every month. Is that still, this month's meeting, which will be day after tomorrow, is that still on for this month?
Not sure, is that the mayor's committee that you're referring to?
Not positive.
We have environmental commission.
But spending doesn't come through any committee, so
Right, I
that, he's just an advisor.
would like to know the activities of that board, or that commission. Is that, the meetings like that open to the public, for attendance by the public?
They can be, but I don't know of any open space commission.
It's listed on the website under the boards and commissions page. One of the boards or commissions is called the Open Space Advisory
Could
Committee or
have been
something like that.
the,
I think that's Councilman Schmidt is supposed to be that.
That's a recreation.
yeah, that could have been the one.
That's
with,
called, you're right, maybe it's called Recreation and Open Space.
Jim Stevens was head of with Pete. Gotcha.
But yeah, Pete, the public would be allowed to go to them. I mean, they're not closed.
They don't advertise, so
They don't advertise.
we'll have funding or funded already.
And staying with that, I mean, I've come up here in prior meetings and argued that, questioned whether maybe it's a possibility to, as a way just to lower the tax burden, one way or another in our town. Eliminate that tax and just roll that budget into public works and other areas, and there's reasons given why that would be difficult. So I have a couple questions for you. That one thing I did find out when that was first on the ballot and passed in 2001, I think it was, about $450,000. That tax rate raised about $450,000 for the open space, toward open space spending. What kind of happened under the radar, I think under the radar anyway, is when the reassessment was done a couple years ago. That adjusted down the general tax, property tax rates that affected our township accordingly, kind of ratioed them down. But the open space stayed at 2 cents per hundred and effectively doubled. So when originally with that raised $450,000 for the township, it now raises $900,000 just through growth and reassessment. So we had a tax increase that kind of went through. So not only I'm trying to argue we should eliminate the spending, this tax in some way, but it's doubled, kind of under it. So I guess there wasn't a question there. I'll ask a question. Is there any consideration being given to sunsetting this tax or
Not at this time.
phasing it out? Can there be? Can it?
Again, from a legality standpoint, Dave, we have in the past reduced it by a penny, but we've never said zero. So,
One
Year, there was not
Yeah.
a tax for that. Just the referendum said not to exceed. So the council in any year can reduce the
so it has been done in the past where we've gone to zero with it and 1 cent. Recently, we have been pretty much at the 2 cent.
Yeah, I wouldn't support reducing it at this time. Maybe in the future, but not this one.
So I'm just going to ask a big general question now. This $52 million that our township has to raise every year through taxation, and the huge property tax rate per hundred that that burdens our township with. That'll never, I mean, I'm not hearing, I never hear much that will ever change. I hear about some saving efforts.
We don't raise 52 million. We raise 37 million, whatever.
Yeah, I'm trying to lower the 52 million spending.
You're talking about
So in effect, we can,
You're talking about the appropriations, but the
I'm talking about what we spend in this
the
township.
amount to be raised by taxation is 37 million.
Yeah, so, but if we lower our spending, we can.
You said raised 52 million. I just want to be clear.
Spend 52 million, that has to be, revenues have to come in accordingly to spend that 52 million. I hear about some of these projects, the solar panel projects and things like that that'll save, but nothing goes down. That same 52 million, we're happy that that same 52 million is what we're spending year after year, and nothing goes down, no matter what.
I've got to ask you, do you think that the employees of the town take less money each successive year? Do you think that the police officers in the town voluntarily say, I'm going to take a pay cut? How about the teachers? Do you think the teachers take a pay cut? I mean, it's not fun. I work with numbers. I'm a bankruptcy attorney. Even my clients are getting raises. Are you making the same amount of money this year as you made 10 years ago?
No, and that's a fair point. There are costs going up at the same time we're finding these
My
cost savings.
electric bill is more expensive this month than it was 2 years ago the same month.
I've worked in the private sector. When things are lean, things are tough, management's complaining, which in effect taxpayers could be equated to management in a public sector
And we have layoffs in
scenario.
the private sector, right?
Yeah.
But not in the governmental sector, right? This town is operating, how many employees are you down?
One was 2 for 2 years.
We're operating with less people.
So I don't believe everything I read on websites and things like that, but I have read that Camden County has the 8th highest tax rate for any county in the country.
I can't answer that.
Yeah, I can't either. But we all agree it's burdensomely high, our tax in Gloucester Township.
But statistics,
So something's not adding up. I mean, I could go to,
statistics are going to tell you anything you want.
yeah, well, how about just, I can go to Bucks County or Newcastle County in Delaware, and taxes aren't like this. Something's amiss.
But you got to look for the differences, right? There's differences, and you can't take into account. You can't just say, okay, property taxes are lower in Pennsylvania or in Bucks County than they are in this state. I don't know how they fund their schools in Bucks County. Do they fund it through a property tax?
You're right. The big picture taxes needs to be taken into account. And we Camden County, no matter what measure, we're overly, I mean.
But I hear people from South Carolina constantly saying, our schools are terrible. Georgia, our schools are terrible.
Well, that's another conversation I'll let others have with schools. I also
But
don't
that's
know
what
how
I-
happy everyone is with the schools, but I'm not qualified to have an opinion on that. But anyway, that's all I have.
Thanks, Pete. Yes, ma'am.
Stand back, because I know how it was. Patricia Klein, Terrestria, Gessickville. First of all, you said our schools are terrible. No, you did when you said you sent your son to Bishop Eustace. Yes, you did. Or you sent your son somewhere outside of this
Please don't put
township.
words in my mouth.
Okay.
I said my children go to Glen Landing School and they get an excellent education.
But you did-
Swear card, did I not say that?
Did you send your son somewhere else? Have they gone somewhere else to another school?
If you go to Swiss
Fine,
But that's not the
That's
question.
his prerogative to send his kids.
my children
What's
are
your
Catholic,
question,
and they
ma'am?
go to a Catholic school.
That's what you said, but
What's your question?
the question still stands. This is my question. The mayor has gotten on TV and has advertised that he saved a lot of money with the recyclable bins, and that our township has the recyclable bins. But that is not true. The low economical developments here in this township, we have divided them. We've separated them. we made them feel very small because we did not give them the recyclable bins. Brittany Woods does not have the recyclable bins. And so I asked the question to the Brittany Woods residents, and they said they called the township, and they were told that the trucks could not fit through their streets. Well, legally, a fire truck has to fit through the streets. Legally, an ambulance has to fit through the streets. So if the ambulance can fit through the streets, if the fire truck can fit through the streets, so can the recyclable truck fit through the streets. My question to you is, why doesn't everyone in the township have the recyclable bins?
Mrs. Klein, they have recyclable bins. It's
No, the
not the
pink
ones
ones.
with the big one, the 96 gallon.
But why?
The pink. And the difference there is, and again, this is the truck has an arm on it that has to reach out, pick up that can, and put the recyclables in its back. So I can only tell you that the experts that do it every day know that they can't use that type of truck to go down and pick up the recyclables. They can use the old style truck, and that's what they do to go down and pick the recyclables up. I know in the past they were working on an alternative method to try to figure out how they could give them one bin so they could put everything in it. And I believe they're still trying to figure that out. But I think for the crux of it, it was that type of truck that has an arm. There's only one driver. It goes out, it picks it up, it dumps it, puts it back down. I believe that's the problem. There's other trucks like the other recyclable trucks don't have those things on the side.
Glenn, I believe you're telling what you know. But in Terrestria, our streets are the same, and half of the Terrestria residents have the trash cans and half do not. They're the same streets. Now my question still remains, and maybe somebody can do some research. If half of Terrestria has, and I have the pink one, the one with the pink top, and other people in Terrestria, they do not, and they're in the same area, the same streets, everything is the same, and that's a question. Why didn't everybody in Terrestria, or why didn't everybody in other developments actually get those bins? So I would really like to know that, because we're trying to build a community. We're not trying to play separation. One is better than the other. We're all the same, and I just want to make sure that the entire community feels like they belong to Gloucester Township, not less.
Yeah, Pat, we're not, that's not our goal, is to
I don't
separate
believe it
anybody
is.
out. I can tell you, I will get you more definitive information on that and where we're heading with that. But that has never been part of the equation, was the heck with them, let's just do it. Our goal when we originally did this project was to hit this with everyone. We saved over $300,000 in the combine of increasing our revenue from the recyclables as well as reducing our waste tonnage. There's no reason why we wouldn't want them to be part of it, because that would only add to that in a better fashion.
Well, Glenn, how someone feels is reality to that individual. So
and I respect that, Pat,
right.
but I also want you to know, when you come up here and you make a statement that we're trying to separate them, that's not true, and I just want to give you that information.
Well, let me clarify
That's
it.
not
I
true.
didn't make the statement that you're trying to separate. I'm saying that's what's taking place, whether you're trying to or not. People are feeling like they're separated. They're feeling like they do not belong to the community. They're taxpayers. I'm not saying that you're trying to make them feel that way, but like I just said, how they feel is reality to that individual. And we and people are talking about it. Why are some getting more and some getting less? And it is reality, and we need to address that, because they're also taxpayers, and we want to make sure they get just as much as everyone else gets. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Jim?
Good evening, Council. Jim Gibbles, this Ariel. I'd just like to revisit the open space question that Pete had.
Sure.
Because going back through my memory, many years ago, when this all started with the street hockey complex, was $2.5 million with borrowed. We have a bond. The next year, we increased the assessment, and we had an additional $450,000. And council had said that they would pay off this loan for the bond as quickly as possible. Has that loan been paid off?
Tom, I know we've been
No, it
paying
hasn't.
one.
Yeah, it hasn't. I don't think it was 2.5 million either. I think it was
It was
1.9 million. And we did make a payment of, I believe, 450,000 in 2000, either 11 or 12. And we're scheduled to make another payment this year of 250,000. So we're paying well and much more than what would be required under a normal debt service structure.
Okay, what is our debt service now? Because I believe we're still going with Kiwanis Club is having major work done on their house.
Yeah, but that was a bond ordinance that was floated out of the recreation open space. So the recreation open space will go to pay that debt service off.
Okay, and what was that bond for, the amount?
I want to say 650 or 700, and that was also combined with another 220 for the rec center expansion.
Now, back for the 1.9 million bond that we had, didn't we have to pay the difference between 1.9 and 2.5? Be what, 600,000 ahead of time?
No, I don't believe so. No.
Okay.
It was always funded out of that bond ordinance.
The total of that project was 1.9. I'm not sure where you got the 2.5, but.
Well, that was
I
the
think that was the
original
first estimate.
starting.
Yeah.
Well, but then we reduced it, actually working with the club. They took on some different things like building the penalty boxes and the benches and stuff like that.
Right, we had the concession stand put in. And,
Right.
You know, that's the other thing too, is the concession stand is being used exclusively by the athletic associations. Am I correct on that?
Correct, for that development.
What about Blackwood Kiwanis?
They use it to support their league as well.
And TBAA?
Yep.
Okay, Township is paying for the utilities for those concession stands. Why can't the athletic associations pay for the utilities when they use them?
Township buildings.
Other township buildings and you know, again, the electric and all that is under our jurisdiction, if you will.
Okay, they couldn't supplement you, make a donation to the township for the use of the electricity, the gas, all that?
The facility, I guess it's a philosophy the township developed over many years to make sure that the appropriate fields and recreation facilities are available for the many organizations. There are quite large organizations that use the fields. And actually, the source of funding is to use the stands, the refreshment stands for them to raise dollars. They supply it, their food and all that. And whatever maintenance they do, I'm not sure how much
A lot of these clubs, Jim, do put money in. I can tell you, Black Kiwanis averages about $50,000 to $60,000 of their own dollars into their fields and into that club. I know when we ran Gloucester Township baseball, we spending $100,000 of our own money for equipment and all kinds of stuff, insurance and all that. Was not far-fetched, and actually that's what we spent. That was back in the late 1990s, early 2000. So a lot of that money comes from those stands that help assist with the running of those ball clubs.
No, I understand that, but when they make these improvements, do they run them through recreation? Do they run them through public works to make sure that it's authorized, since it is a township building, it is township property? They do.
They have to get permits. Yeah, they have to get permits, and they run it through a work order system through Public Works.
Jim, if I can give you an example, Erie Little League in 2012 approached council and Public Works to put up lights. They paid $150,000 out of their own pocket to put up lights on our township fields. They obtained their permits. They worked with Public Works, the council, and the mayor to make sure those lights went up by opening.
Good. Okay, very good. So the associations are doing that.
Oh,
I guess what I'm getting back to is we've got an additional $450,000 for the last few years. All our debt should be down. You know, or we should be able to reduce the open space amount to 1 cent.
Ultimately, yeah, that's, I mean, I wanted to give an answer to these questions. I'd like to do, right now, I can't.
Why?
I just don't think we're in a position until the hockey is paid off, until the other things are paid off. But at that point in time, we may want to do that. But as you're talking to me, and to the rest of the council, I'm listening to you, and I'm saying, you know, people move into a town for a couple of reasons. One, they want good schools for their children. They want activities for the kids. And they want to be safe. And in this town, we have all three. We have a good police department, we have a lot of activities for the children, we have good schools. So, it's a balance. If we approach it like an accountant, sure, you can find things to cut, but I think that there's going to be hidden costs that you will find later on down the line.
But I guess what I'm saying is with the open space, please, let's specifically stay with open space. Okay, you had 100% increase when the revaluation went through. An additional $450,000. You know, that's a heck of a lot of money that could be used to pay off the 2.5 million, or the 1.9 million plus the 700,000 a lot quicker than what we're doing.
And Jim, from a standpoint of looking at it from that angle, yes. But we have over 700 acres of open space that we must maintain. That doesn't get maintained out of our operations. Most of that gets maintained out of this open space fund. And, you know, we had Lake Matilda that we now have cleared and redid just the basics of it so that the Cub Scouts, the Boy Scouts, the Girl Scouts can all use that. And hopefully they will take over the maintenance of that as we get it up to par for them. All other areas, I mean, we need to maintain them. Just basic stuff sometimes costs dollars. Just getting the equipment to do it costs dollars.
I read, Lake Matilda, is that township property?
Yes,
Yes.
that was Green Acres, if I'm not
It
mistaken.
was Green Acres, yes.
And I would tell everybody, take a ride down there, look at that property.
Okay. Last thing, I know a lot of people have been complaining about the roads and the MUA when they tore up the stuff. Really nice driving down the nice smooth roads, and especially coming out of St. Agnes going the opposite direction. I know that wasn't part of the deal, and the mayor had worked in getting the CCMUA to pave the other part, and it's nice. I don't hit the roof of my car anymore when I drive down. So thank you.
Thank you. And just to add to that, not only the mayor, but the Public Works Director stopped personally when he saw that they were only going to do a portion of it, stopped them, got the MUA on the phone and made the change so it went from curb to curb. So not only the mayor's office, but we also have Public Works working, making sure that happens as well.
Good. Thanks, Lynn.
Joanne?
Joanne Clark, Timberville. I'm learning about a lot of things. Am I realizing correctly that the only monies that we use to pay back these open space bills comes from our open space account?
The
We
ones
don't
that
take
Tom...
any other money to put towards those bills?
The ones that Tom talked about are all being paid out of open space fund.
That's not to say we haven't had recreation elements of general obligation bond ordinances. A GO would be something like drainage or street improvements. We've had recreation projects that we funded out of the general fund.
Okay, but they're just separate things, but things that have been taken on with quote open space grant money or whatever, basically only gets paid.
Two instances. One is the hockey rinks. The second was an ordinance that combined the improvements to the Kiwanis Field, including the building, and the expansion of the recreation center, which I believe is going on right now, correct?
But I think the more important, Joanne, is the upkeep of all those areas. A great portion of that is taken out of open space, which is where, before we even talk about it, we make sure, one, that it qualifies. And our solicitor reviews that. If there's any inkling of that it may not, or questions, we don't do it that way. So
the amount collected with that 2-cent tax goes for maintenance and whatever other things, and towards whatever bills are outstanding.
that we designate for that fund, absolutely.
I know this is beating a dead horse, but I've asked this before. We have our red light cameras, we have income from fines for the red light cameras. I know it goes into the general fund. If we didn't have this thing going on at all, we wouldn't have that money at all. So why cannot some of those revenues be used to pay off a bond so it's not hanging over our head, whether it be open space bond or just general repair bonds here in the township? Do we know how much we're taking in this year on red light?
Well, I don't estimate.
Yeah, I don't have numbers, but probably about 1.5, maybe 1.6. To answer the first question with regard to the open space, you cannot, and I've said this before, you cannot use the red light cameras for the open space. That's a separate trust fund that's created by the referendum. They have to be mutually exclusive. You cannot use that money for that. Now, I would say to you that the red light cameras, in a way, do go to offset that service because they're part of the revenue side of the budget. And on the expenditure side of the budget is the principal and interest that has to be paid as it's scheduled to be paid. So as long as we're able to keep the amount to be raised by taxation level and not increase that money, that revenue, and any other revenues that we generate is going to offset debt service along with the other expenses that we have in the budget. But you can't directly use the money.
I wasn't saying that. I was saying, once it hits our general fund, you can use that money for whatever you want, once it hits the general fund.
In essence, it's an equation.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm like, everything on this side, to pay off what's on this side.
You have to have a balanced budget.
Okay. All right, red light revenues are down. Hopefully people are paying closer attention. Sounds good. So it's less that can be used to pay off these different things. How much reduced are you're saying you have to bring in so much from property taxes. And I've gotten up here before and said, I'm assessed at 93 now? No, 193. And the house down the street went for 140. If enough of them happen, we will be collecting less. How much less are you collecting in taxes this year than you did last year? How much harder is it for you to get that 32 or 37 million that you need to bring in?
I'm not sure of the question. How much harder is it to collect? If you're talking about the actual process of collection, this town has been since 1997, and except for the transition period going from the fiscal year to the calendar year, has been on an accelerated tax sale basis, meaning that we hold a sale before the end of our current budget cycle, and therefore the collection ratio is close to 99.8%. So,
now when you have a tax sale, pardon my ignorance, are you selling what is owed, or are we
yes,
selling the house?
selling what is owed, and we sell for not only the taxes, but we sell for the GTMUA and we sell for the CCMUA. The lien holder has to prioritize their lien. In other words, they can't allow another lien holder to come in a more recent tax sale and buy up the delinquency on that particular property. Otherwise, they forego their ability to foreclose. They can foreclose after holding a lien for 2 years. Correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Carlemere.
That's correct.
And the township can foreclose after holding a lien for 6 months. That's called a tax title lien, and that's a municipal lien. We tend not to hold those. We either assign those or we wait for an extended period of time. I don't recall any instance where the municipality held a tax title lien and initiated foreclosure proceedings after a 6-month period, even after a year. I would say in most cases it's after several years, and most recently we're looking at tax assignments, which means after the sale, you're permitted under the state of New Jersey, it's been in effect, I believe, for the last 2 years now, you're permitted to go back and go over the list of the investors that came in to buy the liens in the tax sale and negotiate the sale of those liens that did not sell in the sale. So that's what an assignment is. You would assign that to them.
Well, when all of these houses that are in trouble are satisfied, are their assessments lowered?
No, not, just because the sheriff's sale takes place doesn't automatically reduce the assessment.
Right.
If my house next door goes to sheriff's sale, that doesn't mean that that house is really worth less. It just means that, you know, the mortgage company didn't get paid. They brought it to a judgment foreclosure. They advertised to the public, hey, if somebody wants to come in and satisfy me, the mortgage company, whatever I'm into it.
Yeah. In the state of New Jersey, law says that the assessed value is determined by good faith transactions, meaning from somebody who's an interested party, has no benefit from it, is not a relative of the individual selling the property. They don't use short sales. They have to be a good faith purchase.
So the property, 3 houses from me that went for 140.
If it's valued at 190,
If it's distressed in any way, if there's,
yeah, they won't take that
they
into
won't use that.
consideration. Chuck Colombo said it here when he was here, I guess 2 meetings ago. Basically that, you know, yes, that house may sell for 140, but it's,
But they're still gonna pay 190 taxes?
Right.
yes.
Because it's apples and oranges. It's apples and oranges. Just because the bank is willing to take less money at a sheriff's sale doesn't mean...
No, this was not distressed. This was sold by the homeowner.
But we don't know why the homeowner sold it. We don't know if they were moving to Florida. We don't know anything about it.
They sold, parents died, the son and daughter inherited it, they sold it.
And they probably, they said, you know something, I don't need to have it.
Well, they had to pay taxes every quarter.
And each one
And
of
they
those,
had to come up with that money.
each one of those sales goes to an A4F form, and that form determines whether or not it's a good faith transaction. And there are many things in that transaction that could skew it towards being thrown out in terms of
Well,
a
they didn't
mark.
know the people that purchased it, they were from somewhere else, but,
I couldn't tell you without
Yeah.
looking at the individual transaction.
okay, all right, I can get my education
Thank you.
later. I appreciate that. But one other thing I wanted to mention for Dan was, ask your question to a senior citizen if they've gotten a raise lately. Everything else has gone up,
Yeah.
and we're dealing with less.
Good point.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing no other hands, we close the public portion. Polling of directors and council, please.
Mr. Moffett?
There's nothing to report at this time.
Mr. Lechner?
I have nothing to report.
Chief Earl?
Nothing to report, thank you.
Mr. Carlemere?
Nothing to report.
Mr. Cardis?
Nothing to report.
Mr. Hutchison?
Thank you for all coming out tonight, and I wanted to thank the police department for a good job with regard to catching the individuals who were robbing the vehicles in our township.
Mr. Schmidt?
I too would like to thank everyone for coming out this evening and staying. Also, as a private citizen, I would like to commend the police force on another note. A few Thursdays ago, I was waiting for the Grim Reaper to walk through the door, and when there was a knock on the door, it was the Gloucester Township Police, and boy, did that help my mind a lot. Tell everybody thank you. Thank you. Have a good evening.
Mr. Seiler? Mrs. Estrada?
Thank you for coming out and have a great week.
Mrs. Winters?
Thank you for coming out, have a great night and a good holiday next weekend.
Mr. Mercado?
Thank you for coming out.
Mr. Bianchini?
Yeah, thank you for coming out to tonight's meetings, and have a great, safe, final summer holiday for Labor Day. I have a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those against? Ayes have it.
Thanks for that. I mean, my head, I mean, I don't have as much cushion in this. Really, they don't stop it. Oh, it's great. I mean, you know, it works.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, I know, I do know.